The Orville Season 4 hasn't yet been officially confirmed, but if Seth MacFarlane's space opera does return, the show will need to decide whether to stick with a big change made in the previous run. Comments from the show's creator suggest the Orville Season 4 isn't a sure thing, but that it could still happen. Hanging in limbo could arguably be a blessing in disguise for the sci-fi show, as it allows more time to consider the project's identity if and when the story continues. The ending of the Orville Season 3 came in August 2022. So, it's safe to say that at least 3 years will likely have passed by the time of a potential comeback for the show. Season 3 underwent an interesting transformation compared with the previous 2 installments. Although the Orville began as a loving Star Trek parody, the show has gradually become a compelling sci-fi drama in its own right, and one notable change to the 3rd season solidified its journey. That being said, it may not make sense to keep that change in place for the Orville Season 4. The Orville Season 4 will need to decide whether to keep the New Horizons subtitle. Seth MacFarlane's subtitle explanation revolves around the gap between the Orville Seasons 2 and 3. The Orville Season 3 softly relaunched the show, airing as the Orville, New Horizons. While at first glance it may seem as if the show is pulling itself closer to its Star Trek roots by adding a subtitle, MacFarlane has explained why this change was made. Speaking with Comic Book, the Orville's creator admitted that adding New Horizons to the title wasn't his idea, but that he was in favor of it because it had been a few years since the Orville Season 2 had concluded. So, the Orville Season 4 could arguably be the Orville, New Horizons Season 2. Of course, MacFarlane is correct. There was only 1 year between the Orville Seasons 1 and 2. However, the 3rd run of episodes didn't begin until 3 years later. That being said, the show wasn't quite different enough to warrant the title being updated, and it gives the impression of New Horizons being a spin-off rather than a direct continuation of the Orville Season 2. So, the show needs to consider whether to keep the confusing subtitle or revert to the original name. Keeping New Horizons in the title would be weird due to the same gap happening again between the Orville Seasons 3 and 4. The Orville season may 4th need to drop the subtitle to avoid another unnecessary change. When the Orville Season 4 begins, if it happens at all, the amount of time that will have passed since Season 3 will be at least equal to the years between Seasons 2 and 3. The repetition of such a length of time between installments would undercut the initial use of the New Horizons subtitle. MacFarlane's explanation made sense after the first delay, but by his logic, the next season should also be renamed. Hopefully, that isn't the case, as it would complicate matters further and imply massive changes to the Orville's formula that aren't necessary and probably won't arrive.